Yeah, Kyle, where are you from?
The Northwest is the easiest answer.
Right on.
Spent a lot of time on the coast, Hood River, Oregon. In term musically, mostly in Oregon, St. John's, Vancouver, Hood River, and the coast.
Right on. Yeah. Excellent. I can relate to that for sure. I'd be curious as to like when did you start playing music? What got you into music?
The thing that got me into music, I started playing music when I was 18, and the thing that got me there, as cliche as this is I was watching VH1 when that was a thing, 100 greatest rock songs of all time.
Okay, yeah.
And it was the first time I heard the first four opening notes to Stairway to Heaven. And I was sitting down, laying down. I was like, that is amazing sounding. I turned around to my dad and said, I'm going to learn how to play that, Dad. And he just kind of like, we'll see. And so the first thing that came into my mind is, we will, motherfucker.
Watch me.
We will. So I stole, my sister had a guitar. It's this red, shiny Samick. And so I stole that from her, and 3 months later, knew Stairway to Heaven note for note. Just came out like, check this out.
Yeah.
Throwing it in my dad's, look at my cock. Yeah. So
Strutting the rock.
yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, so do you still find yourself listening to a lot of Zeppelin? Like, considering that that's like where you started, is that still a major influence now? Has that been a constant?
Um. Huh. Interesting. I hadn't really thought about it. It is a very important formative part of my musical ear, but it's not something I really listen to anymore. Every time I go back to it, I'm like, God damn, like these guys are no joke. But I don't really spend much time searching Zeppelin or Zeppelin-like things out. It's become predictable. It's become like I know every note. So the joy and excitement of, oh my God, what's next is lost on it. Yeah. I tend to try to stretch my ear a little bit more now.
Okay. Well, speaking of stretching ears, like what is tickling your ears these days? What are you finding yourself drawn to?
To be honest with you, a bent knee. Um, I come away from them. I keep on going back in. I am utterly in love with their entire discography.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, incredibly talented musicians, and you never know what they're gonna do next. Like they come at you pretty rock, but you just never know.
What do you,
Lyrical content is crazy.
yeah, what do you mean? Where do they kind of surprise you? What is it like? Is it stylistically? Like, what are some of their tricks?
Yeah, so I've noticed they're really good at composing things that sound incredibly complicated through polymeters, but the harmonic structure of the song will be almost entirely just two chords. Song uh, Battle Creek is a song that comes to mind, where almost the entire song would be like a minor one and a minor one, major six. It's like almost the entire movement of the song, and except for their bridge, and it doesn't feel or sound like that at all. A lot of it, I can't remember the drummer's name's Gavin something, which something is definitely not his surname, but he is incredibly clever. He plays and pulls on whatever the meter that the band is kind of imposing on you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think I'm like really pulled. Being a guitar player, I'm not usually pulled to the drummer, but I'm really pulled to the drummer.
Yeah, that's a cool statement. I mean, it's just general to say that you love like the entire discography. I don't think I can really say that for any of the artists that I find myself listening to. It's a huge testament.
Yeah, they're no joke.
Right on. Okay, so amidst Bet Knee being kind of like what's current with you, what are some of your more like what are some of the other like important records, other pieces of music that you're still holding on to? Like the
Yeah.
Desert Island thing. Like if you were to leave with 5 records on a road trip, what would you take with you?
Um, as cliche as this is, right off the bat would be Abbey Road and Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah, huge.
Um, yeah, those two albums contain more nostalgia, musical meaning, and musical lessons than I think almost any other album I can think of.
Yeah.
Like it's just distilled, and just some of the melodic writing. I'm really starting to find myself pulled more and more to melody. It used to be just asinine licks and runs that were the things that pulled my ear in, but now it's starting to become melody and how that melody's juxtaposed over chords,
Yeah.
and how like a huge chunk of melody is timing. It's more like rhythmically important than almost anything, and they are masterful and their melodic placement and how they use it. I think another big one would be the Mars Volta. You have to help me with this. Delouse and Contorium.
Yeah, Delouse the Comatorium.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
I don't know the name, but that album, start to back, dude, is yeah.
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 It's
it was.
Yeah, it's such a contrast. I mean, it's interesting, just like with the 3 artists that you've kind of mentioned already. I got to see Bettany once. Granted, it was a sub of a drummer that night. But like, I can see kind of like Bettany kind of being somewhere in the middle of the Beatles and the Mars Volta. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a bridge of or marriage of the two.
Yeah, they really do. The singer chooses a lot of melodic lines that you would almost swear she pulled straight from the Beatles.
Huh.
But they are almost just as chaotic as the Mars Volta.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That record special place in my heart for sure. That's good album.
Yeah. So that's I think Erykah Badu, Mama's Gun would be on there as well.
Cool.
Yeah, just because that was the first album that really pulled me to. It was the first album that showed me that you could use like jazz chords and ideals and sensibilities, but in a very like simplified, stripped down. How do I say it? It was some kind of like amalgamation of jazz, pop, and hip hop.
Right.
And it's almost perfect. It's almost a perfect album.
She's fantastic. She is a wonderful front woman, and has a gift for surrounding herself with musicians that really cater to her style.
Yeah. You can hear the listening on that album.
It's a great. Yeah, you hear the. Yeah, man. Cool. Okay, what about music that you're involved in? Like, what's some of the experience that you've had making music?
The most recent thing is a band called the Rymac Band. It was formed around a local bass player named Ryan McAlexander, who is an absolute monster. He can play bass like a motherfucker. He knows what he's doing. He can sing like a motherfucker. He knows what he's doing. It's the like utter reckless abandonment in which he does both. That makes playing with him an incredible challenge and and exhilarating. We've been getting songs that are kind of obscure together, and then we'll work the chords out, usually not in the key they're written, and sometimes it'll change the day of the gig once we show up. And we'll just work form, and beyond that, we'll just every time we play it, it's different. Just kind of understand the song, understand how you hear the song, and then just try to go for it.
Yeah.
So it's been, terrifying and exhilarating and a bunch of fun.
Yeah, musical exploration is huge.
Yeah.
Okay, what about recording? You've had some recording experiences, yeah?
Yeah.
What about that?
Haven't done that in a while. I mean, I was recording quite a bit there for about a year. And then my wife and I bought a house, and that started tapering it down because it's an old house, so there was a lot of work. And then shortly thereafter, COVID struck. So all of that's kind of gone on the wayside. My experience when I was recording, though, it was interesting because I wasn't really given much time or information. There was quite a few songs I was playing on that was like I'd hear it in the studio. And so, just throw some shit down, figure the key out, throw some shit down, see what happens.
Yeah.
Which was usually pretty challenging too, because in the situation I was in, the only thing that was guiding me into how to approach the song was my ear. There wasn't much input, which was a compliment because there was a lot of trust, but it was also like it's kind of stymies you in the moment. Because you're like, I could take this. I could go flamenco. Nah, that'd be awkward. I could go reggae. Maybe too much. Rock and roll. That's too much balls. What if I tasteful, like class? I don't know. How should I take this? So that was interesting.
I mean, that's an interesting situation. At that point, you're like being asked to be creative on the fly. And so like, you had like a number of these different like potential directions that you could go into. Did you like sample each of them, or were you like running this through your mind while listening to the music? Like how did it go from like not having anything for you to do to you actually having something to do over the track?
Yeah. So what I would do is listen to the track a few times. Then I would, I'd noodle and figure the key out, hum along with the tune, figure out the note I was humming, noodle a little bit, figure the key out. Then I'd do another listen through. And the second listen, I would just kind of noodle, get my bearings. This is how this chord, this is the area of this scale that I want to play over this chord sound. Kind of just get my bearings. And then by the third time, I would just fucking go. Usually with 2 or 3 nuggets that were worth a damn, and everything else was just vomit. And so then I would go back and like, okay, there are my nuggets. Okay, now I can start playing with it.
So at that
kind of work it out like that.
Did you like, were you often listening back to what you had already played? Was this like where you play a take and then go back in and listen to it and then play another take based upon your experience listening, or like?
No, this would be me just listening to the tune, and I can play with headphones, but I honestly prefer having it on monitors without any monitor feedback. I want to feel like I'm playing to a radio. Because that's how kind of I learned how to play. That's how I know how to be aggressive, is more string noise than amp noise.
Okay.
So I would just play like it was a radio and just like I was jamming on it, and then by that time I'd have a pretty good idea of how to go. And then after I'd had the idea, then it was just 3 takes. Let's just do 3 takes and let the producer do his magic.
Cool. Right on. That's the whole idea of listening to music like in open air and playing along to that. That's unique. I've never thought to like try and recreate that like learning experience, that like learning environment in the studio. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more comfortable for me, because You know, I'm more concerned with being confident and comfortable than I am looking like I've done it before.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to. I'd much rather be comfortable and confident in my playing. You have to hear. How do I say it? If it's gonna sound good, your right hand has to be sure. It has to have enough like oomph behind it.
Yeah.
And almost more important than your left hand. If your right hand is like hesitant and holding back because something's too loud, or then the whole thing it just sounds empty and weak without personality.
Yeah. That's a great perspective. Yeah, I mean, like that. I mean, we talk about that a lot as bass players. Just like the right hand drives the music, and at the point that it has doubt in it, the whole line sounds like doubt, even if the left hand is solid. Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree.
Woo. Okay. Cool. This is good. Um, I want to ask about like what's so. I mean, you're at a point now where you can like step into a room and hear a song and like come up with a part that like can complement that. That's a pretty big musical achievement to be able to like co-compose or like compose to somebody's music, let alone like improvise like at a gig. What were some of the significant challenges in you getting to that like point of confidence and competence as a musician?
I think that is what I did from day one. Um, the vast majority of my learning had very little to do with me learning a song. Like I never learned a song from a piece of sheet music note for note. I get a sense of where my hands should be, and then I listen to the song, and then I'll learn by playing along with it. So I almost learn more from ear than I have ever done through actual reading of music. I got pretty good at reading tab, like almost sight reading tab.
Yeah.
But like very weak at staff, very, very weak at staff. But so the goal I always gave myself is I put on a tune that like I just loved, and then I just decided that I was the other guitar player in the band. And so from year one, I just played with tunes I loved, albums I loved, as if I was in the studio and I had to have a part. And so sometimes I'd complement lines that were already there. Sometimes I'd create new lines. Sometimes I just comped because it wasn't my time. You know, something else needed to shine at that time. So
Yeah.
So I think it's just more, you know, practice makes perfect.
That's it. Yeah. It reminds me of The Music Lesson. Did you ever get hip to that book by Victor Wooten?
Yeah.
He talks about this a little bit in the sense that it's like he points at the main character's like record collection is like basically you have all these masters here that you can play with. It's just like yeah, on and play along. And it's like almost a direct experience at that point. It's interesting how recorded music is a very like it's a very effective learning curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the language being spoken. It's interesting because it's like the language can be spoken and you can speak over it, right? You can like have a simultaneous conversation where it's like we have this like phrasing where I'll say something and then like you'll have something to say back. It's not very often with like spoken languages like English or Spanish where we can just like talk over each other and like be cohesive and effective and understandable.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and that would be kind of the strength of it. If I was trying to learn French and I had a conversation that was already one side of it was recorded, and I had the ability to like pause it and rewind it and go back and make a statement and be like, oh no, that was fucking stupid. Pause it, rewind it, go back, remake the statement. You know, effectively that is that's how I learned that language.
Yeah.
And you know, gained those skills and it hands down was by far the best way to do it. That and DVDs, watching live concerts, man, because the amount of doors that opens in terms of like what part of the neck, how is he going from this note to that note? Oh shit, he's in this mode in that spot on the neck. Okay, So that like shortcutted a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah, seeing people do it. I would say that like live shows in general, going to see live music is a very like it's a very rich experience if you're trying to learn how the language is spoken or like even
Yeah.
the physics of the language, like
Yeah.
what how it's performed.
Oh, and just the ego crushing piece of it. Like I found that incredibly valuable when I started getting good in my room by myself, but I didn't have confidence to show anyone. So the first thing I do when I go to a live show at 20 was I size up the musicians on stage and imagine, well, I'm better than them. And then you watch them do shit you can't do, and you're like, oh fuck, back to the room. So there was this, this like insecure, humble, tough guy thing, and then just smashed because the dude's doing stuff you don't understand.
Yeah.
And he puts a new target up. Like, okay, I got to go research that. What the fuck was he doing?
Right.
So it circles you back around,
I think it's an interesting thing because like at that point you're talking about how it can like keep you in check. But I listened to an interview with Rob Zombie not too long ago, and he talked about an experience where he went to go see the Ramones, and like he went to go see the show, and he'd been practicing music for a while at that point, but like he went and saw them and like the success that they were accumulating, and he's like, oh, like I can do that, like
yeah,
it's just like it's interesting to like actually see it done, see humans doing the thing, and then at that point it just makes it that much more achievable. So it's interesting how like depending on the show and maybe the mindset that you go into it with, it can like either like it can empower you in two different directions to like
yeah.
to like practice your craft in private or to go public with the craft and perform it.
Well, and I think that there was phases for sure. Like through phase one, which is I'm just going to call it phase one, like the beginning piece of me becoming an actual guitar player, not just the dude that played guitar, which those are very different. So in my like process of becoming a guitar player, phase one, it just slapped me down and threw me back in the room.
Yeah.
But there was definitely this point at phase two when I started like popping my head out a little and playing a little, where I was like, actually, I can do that. Yeah. I can do that with my eyes closed. I could do this. And then, and then you hit the ground running. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Cool. Okay. Yeah. What is music? What is this thing? Music.
Music. What is music? That is a multi-layered question there. Give me 1 second. Okay. Music is a source of entertainment. Music is a deeper mode of self-identification, which helps you then identify and connect with others. Music is a language greater than the spoken language because it can transcend a culture. And music is, a way of, how do I say it? Music is a way of understanding yourself, but in an immersive. What's the word I'm looking for here? It exposes itself as you're going into it. So you're almost watching yourself become aware of yourself as you're doing it. Yeah.
Sense to me. I think that like music kind of shares that facet with like a mentality. Like I can get to know myself through cooking or through my bike, right? I mean, it's just like anything that like you can kind of apply this like sense of focus to, you can start to discover yourself through the art of it. It's like, that's interesting because like at that point, it's like anything can kind of become art, which I believe. It's just like you can make pots and it not be art. You can make pots for Starbucks or make mugs for Starbucks, and not really be making art. Or you can definitely make mugs that are art, and
Yeah.
you can do that you can cook at McDonald's and you can cook at home, and like at the point that you're cooking at home, there's probably a little bit more art mentality. Like it's,
Yeah.
I think that's part of, like, it is a medicine. I think it is a good medicine for like the individual, because it's another facet that we can start to understand ourselves better. Um,
Yeah.
but like the other side of it that you talk about is like the entertainment, like where there's this benefit on the other side of the performer, on the exterior of the performer. Like I want to hear you talk more about that. Like why is that effective? Why is that something that people at certain points in history like flocked to?
Yeah. I think, let me get about to get real. Yeah. All right. So I think that entertainment it's an announcement to a group of people from the entertainer's perspective. You're announcing your skill at something. To have enough confidence to announce your skill, one of two things are happening. You either don't know what the fuck you're doing and you think you're good at it, or you know what you're doing and you are good at it. So we're going to focus on the second one. You're announcing to this group of people that, hey, shut up and listen. I've thought really hard about this and I've spent a lot of time trying to get good at it. Check this out. And then if you're good enough to actually keep people's attention, they're going to respect that announcement, but they're going to reciprocate with attention, a little money, but their time, and which is what money is, right?
Yeah.
Money is access to resource, but what we're actually giving is little chunks of our existence, right? So they're not only giving you their existence at that moment, which is a really respectful thing to do. When you think about it, the audience is respecting the artist because they're saying, I know that you're going to enrich me. You have something to offer.
Yeah.
And I trust that you have something to offer. So there's this piece of respect given from the audience to the entertainer, and the entertainer has to take that time and fill it with something meaningful. Something, and it's meaningful because they've spent time honing the craft and thinking about what they're doing. So there's this kind of symbiotic relationship and respect that's given. And the thing that everyone's mutually respecting seems to be each other's time.
Yeah. That's that I kind of want to go into this giving of attention thing. When I was in college, I was studying with a choral conductor who talked about the circle of music, in the sense that there's interesting because with him, he was conducting us. He was leading an ensemble of vocalists so that we could all sing with the same cadence and emotion and content, And then it went from like each of us to the audience, like, and they witnessed it. And at that point, like, they're witnessing it, like, channels energy back into the ensemble. And so there's this, like, a circuit that ends up completed by people's attention, by people's presence and awareness and, like, and reception of it, which is interesting because we have, like, something like pre-recorded shows or live streams are becoming a thing. It's just like at the point that because of COVID, we're having musicians perform into a screen or into a camera, and then that's being received through a screen. And so, like, theoretically, like, they're still getting our attention as listeners and observers, but something's missing there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that, like, I'm a pretty motivated musician, and I've been next to, like, zero motivated to do any live streaming because the audience isn't there. The circuit is. Yeah. And so it's just interesting to me that it's something a little bit more than awareness or participation in reception. But there's like a physical thing, the live show, going to the show and being in the room of the thing
Yeah.
is like, that's magic. Like that's like, I feel like that's like an element of entertainment that's disappearing these days.
Yeah.
With venues closing because people aren't going out to see live music. But and I think that a lot of people would argue that it's like, why would I go to a show and pay $15 to get in when I could watch them playing The Last City on YouTube? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
and they're
Well, I think there's two things to this. First, I think from the artist standpoint, if I'm playing into my camera, what it affords me is to not worry about the audience. So if I'm to play a note on an acoustic guitar, for example, and I hit this singular note or harmonic or something, and I actually give it time to breathe all the way through to silence, maybe even 5 seconds into silence. That's a much harder thing for me to do live, because I have this awareness that the audience has anticipation and is waiting. I don't want to make them wait too long.
right.
You know, so there's this like subconscious game that you can drop, which allows you to put more attention into the sound you're creating. So you might be able to create, in a sense, a more immersive, patient type of music. With that said, you can't have that piece, like that game between the audience and a good performer. They know each other's there. And so, you know, as social creatures, we're very aware of where eyes are, of body language, of all this subconscious, you know, context that we get to kind of participate in.
Yeah.
Inside of a live show. I do think that we have a little bit of an issue. Just give me one moment.
You're all good.
That cold. I do think we have one little bit of an issue with live performing, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's a mean statement, but I'm going to say it. We have made going out to venues less exciting because we've overflooded the market with talent. There used to be a ceiling, and you had to be X good to get through that ceiling, and there was a way to get through that, and you were pulled from backyard jams into groups, and then the groups would do this, and then they'd subdivide into other groups, and there was this way of getting brought up through music. But part of what that did was it vetted people that were worth a damn that could actually play. A lot of that has been lost, and so I think a lot of this happened kind of with the internet, but almost like YouTube, through like indie music, where we got so saturated with perfect pop and new metal and these overly produced pieces that people were looking for the cool, obscure thing that reminded them of something nostalgic and something special. Right. And so you'd go out to a bar and you'd watch someone play an accordion and stomp on a cat and be like, I've never seen that before. And
I have not seen that.
Yeah. So, you know, and it wasn't necessarily good, but it was definitely unique and special.
Right.
And so it opened venues up to talent that hadn't had the time to hone their skills and hadn't had the pressure to perfect it. So it got flooded.
It's interesting to me because like at this point you get almost anybody can record music and publish at this point. It's very I mean, like your cell phone, you could record yourself and publish to YouTube like within 10 minutes. Like it's not going to take care for you to upload it, like a take of music and like publish it. And so I think that is part of, like, the internet is definitely responsible for this. But it's like there's another facet to this, is like that whole vetting process of musicians getting what might be like technically good at their craft, like
Mhm.
there's like that was something that like changed in like I want to say like the 80s in regards to how venues started booking bands. Like there was this interaction of like venues like back in the day booking a band to play 5 nights in a row. You played residencies, and residencies are
Yeah.
extinct at this point, and they can like cycle through all these different ensembles and then see what is popular, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's high quality music if it's and popular. Those aren't mutually exclusive, right? And so it's just like
Yeah.
at this point it's like venues are looking for what is popular. So what is popular? Popular is like a state of the masses, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's not really a genre. It's like it's a statement of like how people are feeling about current music or what is deemed good music. Um, I don't know. It's fascinating to see like because since then our pop music has changed very drastically.
Yeah. Very drastically. It seems first to circle back to the venue. I think also in terms of scale, which scale of venue, right? So I'm thinking of like decent bar to small hall
Right.
range.
Yep.
Inside of that range, you'll have bands that are popular, and then the next week, because they have this, it's a more fluid. Bring in the options. So you have a band that is good and does popular music, not great, good. And then the next week you got a band that is just so loud you can't tell who's the bass player and who's the guitar player. Just completely inexperienced as to how to work a room just in terms of sound.
Right.
Um, and so I think part of the exodus from venues is that experience of not knowing what you're going to get. From a consumer or an audience member, I want to go in. I want to hear the drums, the bass, the singer, the backups, the guitar. I want to hear them, and I want to hear them in their moments. And I want to hear them as a group, and I want to have a moment to be quiet enough in a moment to be like, holy crap, that was good. Not holy crap, I can't hear you. And then so you want this experience to go out, but you also want, when you're there, to have a nice experience.
Right.
You don't go to the movie theater and like, well, I bought a ticket for Endgame. I can't wait to see this movie. And you go in and it's just white and just noise at full volume.
Right.
But like, eventually you're like, I'm not going to the theater.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to get the movie I want.
Right.
I'm not going to go. And so I think there's a piece of it. It's just a matter of quality control. And I don't think bars, because they had this freedom of cycling through all these musicians, they just didn't have, they didn't have the motivation. They didn't have the income from the gigs to vet. They didn't have the ability. There was no real structure. You just had some dude off the street going, can I play? And like, I'm trying to run a business. I don't give a shit about your YouTube channel. Like,
right.
So I think there's a little bit of that going on, or maybe I think there's a lot of bit of that going on. I do, however, think that you also have these Instagram, YouTube guitar players, I'm guitar centric, that are just fucking phenomenal, that we would have never had any way ever to see. So like,
Yeah. The like indie is it's just interesting. I mean, we're generating so much content as a species that we'll never get to witness all of it. But it is kind of like a general vetting process that is happening where via the algorithms inside of YouTube or like within Facebook, like within social media in general, it's kind of bringing a cream of sorts to the top. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It'll be interesting.
it's incredibly.
It is incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's bizarre to know that like the computers are organizing our experiences for us. And it's, it's just,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's also very interesting because there is a little bit. I mean, I'd like to see a resurgence of course, because I'm in a band that's doing it, but I'd love to see a resurgence of improv and the audience understanding that you're getting something that night that won't be repeated. So that even if you say, man, I love the way this band plays, taco salad or whatever song, um, you take your friend to go see it next night and they play it completely different and you're a little dismayed and you're like, I don't know, but your friend's like, no, that was amazing. And you have this whole other experience of surprise and special moments. um Artisan, it's kind of like artisan music.
yeah,
Every cup, if you're going back to your pot or your mug, every artisan mug is different, and that's why people like them.
right.
That's the whole point of being able to improv, is like to create an artisan gig for the audience.
It was a thing for a long.
Yeah.
You look at people like Zappa, and it's just, and he hit like an interesting balance of it where parts of his music were super unique every single night, and other parts of it were hyper constrained and like he had all the structure inside of it.
Yeah.
It reminds me, what it makes me think about is I forget who it was. I want to say the Wu-Tang Clan, but what they did is they recorded an album and they pressed it to vinyl and they sold one copy of it. There was one, and they auctioned it off, I believe, on eBay, and it sold for $1 million. It's like there's that one.
Yeah.
It's just like the scarcity of a product determines the value of it. More so than the quality of the product, because at that point it's like, who knows, they didn't get to listen to it beforehand, they just wanted to have the only one. And so
Yeah.
something in our species that is kind of driven towards that. It'll be interesting to see if we become more aware of that kind of like subconscious desire for unique experiences and start to value musicians that can improvise again.
Yeah. I certainly hope so, or also spent a lot of time jamming with, all those vinyl records we were talking about for no reason.
Oh goodness. Okay, yeah. Let's lighten it up. Most absurd musical moment. Like, yeah. Most absurd musical moment in your life.
Most absurd musical moment. So, I was playing. I've got. Yeah, this probably takes it. I think you were there for it, man. I think we were playing a Marley tribute gig on the coast at the Schooner.
Yeah.
And he shall go unnamed, but this this jousting for a lady's attention began in front of us. Halfway through, it became shirtless, only the dudes.
Right.
And transpired into like a push-up contest in the middle of the dance floor, right in front of the band, mid-song. That was that was pretty absurd. Yeah, that was hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, like, it was amazing. I think 2 or 3 times I almost forgot what tune we were playing and what I was supposed to do next. Just watching this thing unfold. I felt like I was watching reality TV while I was playing a gig. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Yeah. No, that's a good enough question where I have to turn it around on you.
Oh,
like what is the
most absurd musical experience that I've had? Oh man, I don't know. I'm trying to. There's been a couple of. I mean, it's just like certain circumstances that just immediately come to mind are just like circumstances where things were said on stage, like that I was very unprepared for. Like I in general, and like so like he has a microphone, right, and this microphone like amplifies whatever he says like to the whole room, right, and so it's just like at one point like I'm getting ready for the next tune, kind of thinking about whatever I need to shift and kind of making eye contact with the drummer, and he just like starts saying these jokes that are just like so far from like kosher, and just like that like my friend is like sober and coping with being sober, and by trying to be funny and just like going so far off the deep end that it's like start the song like that's what,
Oh shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just funny how, what I don't know. It's interesting, like cameras or like microphones, recording devices in general do funny things to people. I know that I like instantly get a little uncomfortable when I have a camera on me, especially like a photographic camera, for whatever reason, you know. But like, there's something about like being observed that, or maybe it's just being observed in general that kind of
Yeah.
causes people to spiral out in a funny way.
I think it does. I think you and I have both been music instructors. You still are.
Yeah.
And you know that conversation you have to have with your student constantly about like it's, you know, they play a song, they're like, I swear I can play it better, because they just totally, it was just trash. Everything of what they just did, had the guitar upside down, they just started hitting things for no reason. And you have to be like, oh no, just calm down, I get it, I'm watching you, I believe that you can do it at home, but it's just the fact that I'm right here. And so there's this like little division of your focus, because you like are focusing on trying to play, but you're also trying to watch that person.
Watching.
You know, am I doing it right? Yeah, you're watching and watching. Am I doing it right? Do you like this? Is it good? Which takes away from your ability to do the thing you're there to do. You know, and I think that people suffer from that, like severely in front of a camera, in front of a crowd.
Right.
It takes a long fucking time to get comfortable in front of people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different state of mind. It's just like there's a little bit of a split in your awareness that causes you to kind of like have this juggling act.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Outside of music, how do you like to spend your time?
Right now is mostly like gardening and hanging out with my kids.
Yeah.
Um, that is fun. Which it's starting. Interestingly enough, we have musical instruments, but I don't make them do anything. Both of my kids are gravitating towards playing music,
Excellent.
which is really cool. So I get to like, I don't get to teach. They don't want me to teach, but sometimes I get to come in and like one finger jam on the on the piano.
Yeah.
As long as it's like within their boundaries. Yeah, so that's been pretty fun. I'm also like, I just love camping,
Yeah.
rafting, hiking.
Yeah.
So
What's the? Yeah, I mean, you had a trip not too long ago that was pretty fast.
yeah,
Tell me about that.
yeah. I ended up just going rafting down the Deschutes for 3 evenings. So it was 4 days, 3 nights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. It was just me and some buds, and a lot of drinking. I think a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
I don't drink that much that often, so that was pretty much what we did while we were out there. You know, for safety.
Yeah. Third.
Yeah. Yeah. It was actually pretty fascinating because usually it was in early to mid-June. Usually by that time of year, it's pretty hot in Central Oregon. This year it was like in the 50s, getting down to the 40s at night.
Wow.
Yeah, we were having gusts of like 60-mile-an-hour winds. So I was in my tent sleeping, and then just like getting slapped by the tent and waking up in the middle of the night. And it was pretty interesting.
How was the water?
Pretty fun.
You done that particular trip before? Had you rafted the Deschutes?
Oh yeah. My buddy Dustin, who did most of the actual rowing of the boat, used to be a guide down the Deschutes. And I was, in a past life, I was a fairly proficient kayaker. And I've been down practically that entire river in my life vest.
Wow.
Just almost every rapid. So, yeah. So we were pretty aware of what was going on in terms of the water and reading it and all that type of stuff.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Books. You're a big podcast junkie right now. Yeah, that's yeah, the media that you're consuming right now. So as far as like I'm aware, that seems to be what you're consuming a lot of. What's standing out for you right now?
One that's standing out for me right now is a Dark Horse, by Brett Weinstein.
Okay.
And he's having his wife, Dr. Heather Hine, I believe is her name. So they're both doctorates. One's in evolutionary biology. They're both in biology. I think they're both in evolutionary biology, but they have different caveats, like different specialties.
Okay.
And so that's been incredibly fascinating. They've been spending a lot of time talking about just the state of the union and the health of the republic.
Fair.
And so that is, yeah.
That's
he's actually just.
It's just an interesting perspective. Evolutionary biologists talking about the state of the nation.
Yeah. Well, and he has an interesting take on it because he was a teacher. He was the biology teacher at Evergreen State a few years ago. There was a big thing that went down where Evergreen State had this big protest, and they ended up like taking over the school and having they were trying to get all the white students to be off the school for a certain day, to have a black only day at college.
Yeah.
They ended up getting the school security police disbanded, and then they ended up walking around with baseball bats, like kind of taking care of the security themselves. And like, yeah, they were trying to get, pieces of different books. They were trying to turn different books and get them banned. There was a bunch of crazy stuff that went down. So he has a very unique perspective on what's happening right now with the BLM movement, and parsing out like which pieces of it are necessary and healthy and need to happen, and which pieces of it are. It's interesting, man. It's very nuanced and interesting. And so they have a very interesting take on it, and a very particular set of experiences with viewing this type of thing. So yeah, that's incredibly fascinating. He also has this movement. He has this great idea, which I hope we can do. I don't know if it's going to work this time, but it would be fascinating to see it happen like next election cycle. It's called Unity 2020. I'm sure you can like look it up online, and it is it's where he's thinking of taking someone from the left and someone from the right. I guess I should do it like this, and having them run on one ticket. And so through some fashion, rock paper scissors, a coin flip, something, they'll decide one to be the president, one to be the VP.
Wow.
And they would make decisions. All the major decisions would be made between the two of them, unless for some reason there would need to be an overriding, like presidential row. It's an emergency. We need an answer now. President makes the decision.
Right.
So that would be the first 4 years. The next 4 years, they would run as a team again, and they would flip. So the VP would become the president, and vice versa. You would do this until someone became ineligible because it was their second term as president. Okay. And then you would rotate that person out with another person from that side of the aisle, so that you would have someone from the right and someone from the left in the office at all times.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole point of this is to bring, because things are so crazy right now that people aren't listening to each other, and that's when it's happening too quickly. We need to pump the brakes, take our time, and try to find some common ground, because otherwise it just turns into just violence. And I think that's the main fear of anyone who's reluctant at the speed in which this is taking.
Right.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that.
There's that. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the other one that I find really fascinating is his brother, actually, brilliant family. Eric Weinstein has a podcast called The Portal. And this is an absolutely brilliant concept for a podcast. He just takes people that are extraordinary in their fields and talks to them like a genius would talk to a genius, because that's inevitably what's happening. He doesn't spend too much time catering to the audience. They just talk. They just use their nomenclature, and then they have a Discord. And if the audience needs some catching up or needs to re-listen, they'll go onto the Discord server and talk to the other people that are listening and kind of like just self-teach themselves to keep up with the level of dialogue. Yeah.
Wow. Seems like it's pretty, that's a pretty profound service to provide in order to have this like wealth of, or this network of information to be able to kind of reverse engineer the discussion.
Yeah. Well, and it just goes to show you how disrespected the audience has been for so long.
Yeah.
Because obviously there are people that are willing and able, and we just literally have this mantra that the average person wants a 30-second soundbite, and it better be bright and shiny. Yeah. And if it's not that, then it's not worth our advertising dollars. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got one more question that like, I guess it's two parts. Like, what is the genre of music that you feel like you have the most experience in? And what are some of the things that give it its style, that make it discernible from others?
Yeah. I definitely have the most experience in rock. I would say probably classic rock.
Okay. Yeah.
The thing that discerns its closest relative would be probably blues. The second closest relative, I would actually say, is country. A lot more than you would suspect. But the thing that kind of discerns it between those two is energy and tempo. Rock is you taking blues forms and you're playing them to a backbeat, a 4/4, as opposed to the 3/4 that it's traditionally played to. And you a lot of times are screwing with the actual form, so you don't do that traditional 12 or 16 bar, the A B turn type of stuff. So it has the pop sensibility of your intro is going to be some form of the chorus, and you're going to do a verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, middle eight or bridge, and then chorus out, maybe double the, whatever formula that's going to take. So it's not necessarily special in its form. Well, the reason why classic rock was special is that it energized blues, and then it gave space for improvisation, which was a blues jazz thing. So it isn't necessarily that special in terms of its improvisation. Almost everything you hear in rock, you can go hear in blues first or hear in jazz first. So it's very derivative until you get to about the 80s and you get to Steve Vai and Van Halen, and they start really stretching out. Yeah. But I think it primarily, to circle back to the question, I'm getting lost in trying to keep my mind on focus. Yeah. But yeah, rock and roll and for those reasons.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Thanks, Kyle. I really appreciate it. It's been a fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed following the rabbit trail and exploring some of that territory. Is there anything you want to say? Yeah, is there any word that you have to the audience that you want to let out before we go?
Don't stop playing. That's probably the most important for musicians. Yes, you suck. You will get better. Keep going.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Right on. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Yeah.